Hey guys, Quentin with Shoot Center in Cape Coral, joined today by Anderson and Tyler. And we are doing this video to talk to you about the questions that you had about NFA items. This is in response to a social media post that we put out asking you what questions you had about NFA items. Quick disclaimer before we begin, we are not attorneys. None of us can give you true legal advice, but what we do have is a lot of experience with the sales process for NFA items and a lot of experience answering these kinds of questions every day in a retail environment. So any points that we make about legality, one, take them with a grain of salt. Always consult an attorney if you're unsure. And number two, this is only going to pertain to law as we understand it in the state of Florida. Without further ado, let's get started. All right, guys, my first question, how can I buy a suppressor? Very pertinent question. So silencers are completely legal, absolutely nothing wrong with having one. There's just a couple more steps in the process than if you were buying a regular firearm off the shelf. So to purchase a suppressor, you'd start at a business like ours or online, a company like Silencer Shop. You'd purchase the item that you want and have it come to a dealer. If it's already at a dealer, like ours, then the process is even simpler. You purchase it just like any other firearm, and then we're going to walk you through our NFA process. So to do that, we need to apply through the ATF on a Form 4 to get permission to own the item and pay $200 as credit toward a tax stamp, which is the actual approval, the special tax stamp for you to own the silencer or short barrel rifle or short barrel shotgun or any other NFA item. Once that tax stamp is approved, which right now is taking anywhere in the ballpark of 6 to 8 months, you can actually come in and pick up that item. All right, next question. Pistol braces. Not exactly a question, but we'll answer it anyway. So earlier this year, the ATF published its final rule on factoring criteria for firearms with stabilizing braces. And basically what that did was treat any pistol with a stabilizing brace on the end of it as a short barrel rifle functionally. So there was a grace period where the ATF was allowing people to apply without paying the $200 tax stamp to register those items as short barrel rifles or short barrel shotguns without having to pay that $200. But that window has closed. So at this point, any of those items would have to be destroyed or turned in. But again, at this point, if you're in possession of an item like that, technically you are in possession of an illegal short barrel rifle per the ATF. So as of right now, purchasing a stabilizing brace and putting it on the back of an AR pistol would be the same thing as purchasing a stock and putting it on the back of that AR pistol. All right, and my last question, how many times has the NFA been amended, like amending rifle barrel length to 16 inches when it was 18 inches? That's actually a really good question. In the little bit of research that I did for this question, to my knowledge, there are at least 3 instances where the NFA has been amended before, at least the language of that document, not counting the pistol brace ruling, which just went into effect this year. Originally, the NFA was designed to curtail, if not outright make illegal or impossible to obtain, certain classifications of firearm that the government thought were more likely to be used in violent crime. Chief among those would have been handguns, as they're easily concealed on the person, and that's really what Congress was kind of getting after with the special tax. But there was a lot of pushback against that, as many law-abiding gun owners in America at the time, and even more today, own handguns for their own self-protection or for the defense of others or just to have fun with. So the handguns were dropped from the original draft of the NFA. It was amended before it even became a tax code. Moving from that, you had small game rifles that were being manufactured with 16-inch barrels in .22 caliber. And the manufacturers of those rifles lobbied the government to have that restriction changed from 18 to 16 inches so that their rifles wouldn't be restricted under the NFA as they had a legitimate sporting purpose, argued the companies. So that was also amended. I suppose it helped that the government had released hundreds of thousands of M1 carbines into circulation that had shorter than 18-inch barrels, accidentally making the people who got them into felons. But they fixed it, and now the barrel length restriction for rifles is set to 16 inches. Shotguns, however, remained unchanged. That's still 18 inches. The only other change that I know of would be when the Firearm Owners Protection Act went into effect in 1986. It changed the language regarding machine guns and destructive devices to you could no longer purchase them, period, unless they were made and registered prior to May of 1986.
All right, next question. How long do they take and why? So we're seeing approvals anywhere from about 6 to 12 months in that ballpark. As for why, it mostly comes down to two factors. So one is the FBI. So whenever you put in an NFA submission, fingerprints are taken and then submitted to the FBI from the ATF. So it's already one instance of government agencies trying to talk to each other. At that point, the FBI kind of treats the NFA like an afterthought, of like, hey, we only have 30 minutes left to do whatever, and we've done all our normal tasks for the day. Let's go ahead and knock out some NFA approvals. So they get that done. They then get back to the ATF, who kind of treats it in the same vein as an afterthought, past their normal duties. So that's kind of why it takes a while. All right. If I have an approved Form 1, can I now store my SBR in my truck? Good question. So assuming you've already gotten the engraving done and all that, it depends. So there aren't any federal regulations on storage as far as NFA items are concerned, assuming that you live alone and nobody else has access to them. However, in the state of Florida, there is a law that prevents you from storing firearms, not just NFA, in a place where a child has reasonable access. So if you have children who can, take your key fob, run out to your truck, and grab your shotgun, then unfortunately not. However, if you, live alone, it's your truck and nobody else should have access to it, then yeah, absolutely. All right, and last but not least, how can we abolish it? Well, I'd say the best way as citizens is to contact not only your representatives in both the Senate and Congress, but also support organizations that fight for your rights, such as Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition. That's honestly the best way to go about it.
All right, next question. What's the point of flow-through cans? Pretty good, especially with the arrival of Huxworks and similar flow-through designs. So how they work is that they actually vent gas towards the front of the suppressor instead of, like the 12 o'clock position or back into the bolt actual chamber. So reasons why that might be good for you. For instance, direct impingement guns, especially some of those guys running SBRs out there, it's going to affect a lot less of the cyclic rate. Like I know some guys run Mark 18s. That cyclic rate, it kind of chews up bulk carrier groups anyway, so just having that actually be, having that cyclic rate be less wear on parts. Also, you're not going to be breathing as much noxious gas, whether you're running short stroke gas piston or direct impingement. So that's good for the heart. So less noxious gas, less strain on parts. Those are really the main two takeaways of why you might want one.
All right, next question. What's the difference between a Form 1 and a Form 4? Pretty simple. A Form 1 is when you are manufacturing your own NFA item, whether it be a suppressor that you're making from scratch or you buy an AR pistol and now you want to put a stock on it. A Form 4 is when you are buying an NFA item from a dealer and now they are waiting for the approval from the ATF, and that's the one that takes about 9 months for it to actually be approved.
Alright guys, that'll do it for today's video. Once again, this only had to do specifically with laws in the state of Florida as we know them And once again, we're not attorneys, so make sure you seek legal advice if you have any very specific questions regarding the NFA process. But that'll do it for us today. Make sure you follow us on all of our social medias, like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you on the range.